Hey, I want to talk to you about DeQuervain's Tenosynovitis. It's a very painful condition that affects your wrists, and I know because I've had it. It took me 6 months to figure out how to heal it, and once I figured it out, it's pretty straightforward. So if you've got this painful tendonitis, tendinosis, tendinopathy, whatever you want to call it, DeQuervain's, do this video, okay? So the main test is called Finkelstein's. It's where you put your thumb inside your hand here, and you would stretch like this. This would stretch these two main tendons that come off the thumb or attached to the thumb, and they come into the forearm here, and you would get pain. Now, when I personally had DeQuervain's, that wasn't painful, so I had a atypical variation. What was painful for me was full wrist extension, and especially if I put any weight onto my wrist, it would send a shooting pain all the way up my arm. I had to rule out things like a fracture because the way it came on for me, I was playing rugby and I handed someone off and I just got a little sort of impulse into my wrist and it was a bit sore the next day and it got worse and worse and worse. So I had to rule out fracture, had to rule out ligament sprains, ligament tears, that kind of thing. But eventually it was diagnosed via MRI as a DeQuervain's Tenosynovitis. Now, these tendons in the actual hand here, you can kind of see them, they pop out. They're held in by these straps of fibrous tissue, and it's where they go underneath this fibrous tissue, that's where they can get sore. So what we need to do first off is stretch this wrist. So this is kind of a nice, the test is actually quite a nice stretch, but I found that this didn't do much for me, and I wanted to integrate my wrist with my elbow and up into my shoulder. So what I used to do is actually stretch out the whole hand like this. So I put my hand down on the ground and I would lean through this way to my left, and I would get a stretch in my shoulder all the way down to my wrists. Now, I also found that doing that, against a wall was good. So let's say I'm standing and I've got my hand against the wall. So it's a chest stretch, but the difference is my hand is placed like this against it, not like this, all right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is I started to strengthen. So I got one of these resistance bars. This one's from DeMoose.Fitness, DeMooseFitness.com. And we can go through any variation. So these two movements in your hand, this one is called pronation, this one's called supination. And the forearm rotators can be stiff or weak, which then leads to an overuse down into the thumb muscles. So we want to start working all these. So I'm going to, here for example, I'm going to work supination, right? This thing provides resistance to me being able to supinate. Then if I put it this way around, it would provide resistance to me to be able to pronate. Now you can do this on the ground, like this. You can do it on a table. I mean, I could be sitting, right, with this on the table. And you want to do sets and reps, so like 15 or 20 of these, and 3 times through. Now, the thing about the tendons is this, is if you exercise and it's painful for a couple of days afterwards, you've overdone it. But if you exercise and it's not painful for a couple of days afterwards, then that's great. So, someone once said that, the boxer Muhammad Ali, they said to him, how many sit-ups do you do? And he says, I just wait till it hurts, then I do 1,000. So it's kind of like this, like, some of you might do 15 and not feel any kind of fatigue or anything in your forearm. So then just, do a few more till you feel the fatigue starting, and then do, 10 when you get to that point of fatigue. All right, so that's the first little thing. Second thing, I've got other videos on this as well, but we really need to stretch out those forearm muscles. And what I noticed is that my ability to rotate my elbow on my restricted or my painful side was very much decreased compared to the non-painful side. And so these muscles that come off the forearm, or those tendons that are irritated, those are the ones that were slowing down or stopping the ability for my forearm to rotate a little bit. So also what I did is, not only did I stretch the backs, I stretched the fronts in all different motions. I drove the elbow into different positions using my left hand here. All right, so I actually got this rotation here. And for me, when this was in this position here. So I'm really stretching my forearm, and then I rotated the wrist. Then I felt those muscles that connect down to the thumb. Pollicis brevis, pollicis longus. Those muscles, those are the ones that need to be stretched, and those ligaments, and sorry, those tendons on there as well. Okay, the last thing I did is actually got my hand in and did a whole bunch of self-massage. So right up by the elbow here, there's a deep muscle that starts on the inside, so on the medial side of the elbow. And if you turn your hand over into supination and pronation, you'll feel it flicking underneath your arm here. All right, and I would hold here really tightly. So I'm squeezing in really tightly, and then I would rotate my hand into supination. So I'd hold, supinate, hold, supinate, hold, supinate, right? So giving myself a little bit of therapy. Now there's some nerves and things in here, so if you press a little too hard and you feel tingling in your hand, that just means you just pressed the nerve. You don't worry, you're not going to damage them, but just don't do that too much. And then the other thing is I actually got into the back of my arm here, and that bony bit here, and there's a bony bit here, right? In between the two, there should be a little divot, and it was quite painful when I got into here. And so what I would do is I would extend my forearm, press in here, and then make a fist and press downwards, fist and press downwards, really pressing hard into here. This is the muscular attachments onto the interosseous membrane, the membrane that connects these two bones together. And for me, I felt this was restricting the ability for my hand to supinate and pronate, to rotate. So I really got into here, and that seemed to loosen things up. So once I actually worked through these muscles up here, once I stretched out the forearm, once I started strengthening it, it didn't take long for the pain to disappear and the tenosynovitis to clear up. So if you had it for a while, do this for about 2 or 3 weeks, you should start feeling a change. Within a month, it should all be gone. So go on, give that little kind of routine a go, and that should give you some ideas for your own therapy.